Hey, what's up, y'all? It's B. Cox from The Vault. So I've started a new private group on Facebook called The Vault Podcast Record Club. In this group, we'll be interacting with each other about all the things that we love, old school and throwback hip-hop and R&B culture with a touch of reggae, and sharing some of our best albums in our personal collections, from vinyl to tapes and CDs. Plus, we'll be including live chats, listening parties, and some exclusives from time to time with giveaways. It's free to join, and we'd love for you to join us and talk old school music with those like you. Just click the link in the show description and notes, answer a few questions, and you're in. I'll see you in the club. I already saved you a seat. Have you ever wanted to know how you could support the Vault Classic Music Reviews and say thank you for all the content that we provide? Now you can. You can find us on Buy Me a Coffee and thank us by giving a small donation to show your support. Visit us at our website, vaultclassicpod.com, and click on the coffee cup in the bottom left-hand corner of the page to donate. All donations are welcome, greatly appreciated, and ensure that we can continue to open the vault.
Welcome to the Vault Podcast.
This week at Macy's, we're ready for a winter pick-me-up with an extra 20% off when you use your coupon or Macy's card. Or shop incredible specials like 30 to 40% off designer handbags and 65% off coats to finish the season in style for him and for her. And get 1,400 thread count sheets for just $39.99. Plus, Macy's Star Rewards members earn on every purchase except gift cards, services, and fees. See Macys.com/Star Rewards. Savings off sale and clearance prices. Exclusions apply.
Classic music reviews presented by IV Creative. Now, here's your hosts, B. Cox and the crew.
Greetings and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Vault Podcast, Classic Music Reviews. Presented by IV Creative, it's a perspective of the classics from a fresh point of view. We appreciate you for taking your time and lending your ears to our perspective. You could be anywhere listening to anything, but you're right here with us, so we thank you. With you today is yours truly, B. Cox, and riding solo here today, but shout out to the crew, of course, and shout out to all the listeners out there, stateside and worldwide, continuing to help us push the numbers up, guys. We thank you all for continuing to spread the word. As always, we want to make sure that you know about our private Facebook community you heard in the opening, the Vault Podcast Record Club. Go in there and click the links on our website, vaultclassicpod.com, and also in the show notes, you go there, click the link, get to the Facebook community, join, answer a few questions, and you're in. Join us as we continue to talk the classics and talks all things retro hip-hop and R&B, and of course, have a great time meeting some great people. And also our Buy Me a Coffee, you can click the links in the show notes there as well, and also on vaultclassicpod.com, the coffee cup on the bottom left-hand corner of the page as you go there to the site. You click on that, give a small donation, show your appreciation to make sure that we can continue giving you the content you love and you need, and that we can continue to open the vault. As we always like to say here on the Vault, our motto is hashtag open the vault, hashtag nothing but the classics, or MBTC, and we have another bonus episode here for you today. As you've noticed, we've brought up this segment, Relics of the Past, where we talk about things that happened back in hip-hop culture during the 90s and early 2000s, things that really aren't around that much anymore, but are fondly remembered by the crowds who were out during that time and the fans who were deep in the culture during that time. So far this year, we talked about Record Release Tuesdays, also talked about the legend of the blank tape, the blank cassette tapes that we used them for a number of different purposes back in the golden age of hip-hop. And I'm going to talk about another one, and this strikes back to a relic of the past, and I'm not sure how much it happens nowadays because of the way the society has changed as far as how we interact with each other, how you hang out with your friends, and how things are done. And I'm going to go back to high school and take this back. Now, when my time was in high school was in the late 90s, specifically between the years, late 96 and to 2000. I graduated in 2000. And we're going to talk about something that everybody did back then that you saw in most high schools and most areas, especially when hip-hop was a big thing. And that's none other than the high school freestyle cypher. Yes, the freestyle cypher in high schools. And for those of us who came up during that time, you knew that there were people in your school that would get together and rap. And as hip-hop became more popular and more mainstream in the late 90s into the 2000s, you found large groups of students and people from different walks of life wanting to get involved in the culture, not just as listeners, but then also as potential rappers as well. Now, in high school, this was a big thing because a lot of us wanted to try our hand at being rappers, and some of us even producers. Now, for me, I tried my hand at both. Once upon a time, your boy used to rap. Well, I guess I still do, but I don't record. So once upon a time, your boy used to rap and he used to record. And I got into making beats when I was about 17 or 18 years old. And the high school ciphers were a big part of my high school, Bowie High School and Bowie, Maryland. And, we had a large group of cross sections of people that sort of converged on Bowie High School. Now, when I first got to Bowie, for a large part of the time that we were there, when my older sisters went to Bowie, Bowie was a mostly white community and largely a mostly white high school. Well, when the 90s came around, as the economy got better, black folks from Prince George's County started moving to Bowie because it became a very popular place to go to live because it was safe and it was clean. They had great resources and malls and stores, and it was a really good community to live. The demographics of the school started to change, and you were seeing a little bit more mixing of the colors of folks who were there, specifically black people and also Hispanics and Asians. So by the time I graduated from Bowie, the percentage of white people to black people and other people of color was sort of like 70-30. By the time I left, it was closer to 50-50. When you get that and you sort of get an influx of the African-American culture into a neighborhood, you then also get the influences that come along with it. So things like hip hop, things like R&B, and then also, of course, because we were in DC, in the DC area, go-go became a big portion of what was a part of the culture of that school as well. So when you had this happening, and during the golden age of hip-hop, where there were so many hip-hop acts out there during that time that people were fans of all different parts of the country, from the north to the south to the southwest to the Midwest to the West Coast, you had a number of different people that had a lot of different rap tastes. So it was only a matter of time before you had Freestyle Cypher start to develop en masse in a high school like Bowie. And that's exactly what happened during my time at Bowie. So the high school Freestyle Cypher, we'll kind of go through it and just kind of bring what the high school cipher was, what kind of things that would happen during the cipher, where they would break out, and then, of course, the type of people you ran into during those ciphers. Now, the definition of a cipher, very loosely, not an official definition, is a cipher is a freestyle session between a group of rappers. It's usually a cipher typically is formed by a circle, and the circle, you go around the circle, and rappers would freestyle, usually have somebody who would, either bang out a beat, whether it was beatboxing, or if you were at a place that had a hard surface like a table, somebody beating out a beat on the, basically banging on the table to make a beat, and you would rhyme over it. And it sounds really simplistic, but that was something we used to do back in the day, especially for those of us who were really into hip-hop and wanted to showcase your skills. Now, the Cypher's been in hip-hop for a long time. I mean, it's been in hip-hop probably for as long as hip-hop has been something in the culture, way back even in the beginnings. And at its very core, it is really what hip-hop is. It's really something that when you talk about folks who do it for the love of the culture, it's something that helped to grow it amongst, okay, if you're an MC, you got to excel in the cipher. Now, there are other ciphers as well, other circles, and that cipher includes the passing of some marijuana wrapped up in a blunt. But we're not talking about that cipher. Though, during high school, I found out that type of cipher kind of intersected with the one which was the freestyle cipher. And we'll get a little bit into that as we go on. So that was the definition of a cipher. So in high school, we would have these ciphers. And, you'd have these rappers. As you would go around school, you would hear words about people that would spit. And then as the ciphers happened, that's how you knew in school who the best rappers in the school were, because, we really didn't have a lot of places to really showcase our talent. It's not like nowadays where you can kind of put things up and the internet is there and you have Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and No, like the Bars app, all these other things that exist right now. Like the ciphers in school is how you found out, people found out you had skills, or if you didn't have skills. So these ciphers would break out, and then you would kind of either travel from circle to circle, whether you were just an observer or a rapper yourself, and you would find out who the people were that had skills. So these ciphers would break out in certain places during the school year. Now, in my high school, one of the first places they would break out initially would be in the hallways. Now, this wasn't a very popular place for the ciphers to break out because your time in the hallways in high school were very limited. Before the first class started, in between classes, at lunchtime, maybe outside of the cafeteria, after school. But we really wouldn't spend a lot of time doing that. But every once in a while, you come in the morning and you see like a circle forming, and, you know, you hear somebody probably beatboxing or somebody, you know, banging against the locker or against the wall or something. And, you know, when you get that vision of what a cipher is, you see heads in a circle and people sort of nodding their head. And as you get closer, you hear the rhymes start to do louder and louder, and you're making out what the words are. So you would see that sometimes in the hallways. Now, these last two examples of where ciphers would break out were the most popular ones when I was in high school. Now, when I was at Bowie, we had a lot of occurrences where we had to end up being outside of the school because of different reasons. Now, the first one, of course, were obviously because of fire drills. And every school has fire drills because, you know, it's mandatory for you to go out and know what happens if there is a fire, what to do, where your class goes during that particular time, where you line up, what the procedure is, and everything else. Teacher takes attendance, make sure everyone is accounted for, that no one's left in the building, all of that. But when we had in Bowie, we had a couple of different things happen that would lead us that would not be planned fire drills. We had people that, of course, would pull the fire alarm, and everybody would have to go outside, and you have to wait for a certain amount of time, and, you know, they find out, oh, it's not actually a fire. By the time the fire department comes, they're like, oh. So we were outside probably for a good maybe 20, 30 minutes or longer. And at that point, we're like, okay, time to do something while we're out here. And then the other thing that happened is that during my freshman year, we actually had kids who were making, like, I guess you say, improvised explosive device. Not necessarily IEDs in a typical respect, how we hear about them in war, in theaters of war, but they were making basically makeshift bombs, like homemade bombs. There were a group of kids that were, when I was freshmen, that were in my freshman class that actually, on two different occasions, made a couple of explosive devices they put in the bathrooms that never really were going to do much damage, but, you know, it was something that they planned. What their motivation behind it, I don't really know. But weird stuff like that happened at Bowie back in the day. So we had a couple of different occasions where we were outside for at least an hour or longer, and then we would then also have bomb threats. So we would be outside on the back of the football field, sitting on the bleachers, on the tracks, and in the infield where the track was, where the football field would be at, is where a lot of these gatherings would happen. But on the bleachers, on the field during fire drills is when a lot of these ciphers took place. And you would notice it. People would be outside during fire drills. After the teacher takes attendance, you would go find your friends. Y'all would hang out. You know, people used to sit out. They would draw and doodle. They would bring out comic books. People would play cards, you know, and obviously they didn't like us playing cards because they thought we were gambling. Well, because we were gambling, playing stuff like Tunk, card games like Tunk. But a section you would also see is people who would break out, like, you know, their rolled cigarettes or blunts, you know, and people would smoke outside during these fire drills. Obviously, you had to be careful because you weren't supposed to be smoking on school grounds. Kids used to do it anyway, though, back then. This is the 90s. I mean, people used to do a lot of things in school they weren't supposed to do. But you would then find these ciphers starting to form, especially either in the bleachers or on the football infield, where you see these circles start to form, and then you knew that people were freestyling. And the telltale when you're walking up and you see people around, obviously the circle's around, but then you see either heads start bobbing and then the activity of movement, so you know something's going on. So we used to have these freestyle ciphers out on the football field, and people would, you know, sit there and rhyme, and guys would freestyle. Sometimes there would be battles, and the battles were always interesting because you wanted to know is after the battle happened, if somebody went a little too hard, it was like, are they going to fight? But, you know, we never really fought when we had battle ciphers in high school. It was only the fights that would happen will always be neighborhood things happening in high school, which my neighborhood got into a fight with a couple of different neighborhoods. It was always high school stuff, like stuff that's really silly back now that you think about it. But the ciphers during those fire drills and those bomb threats will really be a big thing, because that's how you got around to know, like, who was really good, because then the whole school was outside. So you would have these different ciphers. You can go from one to the other to the next and hear these people that were spitting. And then word starts to get around because it's like, yo, I heard such and such. Like, you know, they were good. They were good. And a couple of people that I'll point out with, my boy Chris, of course, In Your Face, I talked to him about here. He was cool, man. He was, like, you know, like I said, incredible MC, even at that time. Shout out to In Your Face. He used to kill during the cipher. There's a girl named Jackie. Actually, she's an artist within the DMV now, out of the DMV. She's still doing her thing, her rawness. she used to kill it. And she used to kill dudes in Cyphers. I used to see her murder dudes in Cyphers, and dudes would not take her seriously because she was, a female. She was a girl. But she used to go out there and handle these dudes. And a lot of dudes, after a while, got scared to be in a cypher with her because if you rhyme after her and you whack, well, you know how that goes. So, a lot of people would go out there to go showcase their skills. And you had to bring your A game if you were in the cypher. And the bomb threat would last maybe about an hour or so, and then you go back inside. Or in some cases, when they couldn't determine whether the threat was neutralized, they would send us home for the day.
This week at Macy's, we're ready for a winter pick-me-up with an extra 20% off when you use your coupon or Macy's card. Or shop incredible specials like 30 to 40% off designer handbags and 65% off coats to finish the season in style for him and for her. And get 1,400 thread count sheets for just $39.99. Plus, Macy's Star Rewards members earn on every purchase except gift cards, services, and fees. See Macys.com/Star Rewards. Savings off sale and clearance prices. Exclusions apply.
But we would spend a good amount of time out on that football field in the bleachers, and that's where a lot of ciphers would take place. But the biggest place where the ciphers would be was the number one place was in the cafeteria at the lunchroom. And the reason why I say this was the best place to have a cipher is because it had everything. It had seating. It had a table where you could bang out a beat to be able to get someone to flow over, and you had a big amount of people in one particular time to be able to get a cipher together, and it was easy. I mean, you could sit down at a table and have like at least where we have a group of like 7, 8, 9, 10 people in one place, and folks would either be listening or you would be rhyming. And so that lunch table became a big part of what a lot of ciphers happened. So I would say when I took part in ciphers during this time, about 80% of them that I took part in was in the at the lunch tables in the cafeteria or in the senior lounge, because it was an easy place to be able to, you congregated, you sat down, you had seats, somebody banged out a beat on the table while you sitting there, and it's easy to be able to congregate a cipher at the lunch table. Now, I've talked many times of what the influence of being at the lunch table served as an inspiration for this show here. Because it did. We sat down, we talked hip hop, we brought out articles of the source and also albums there. We would sit there and talk, and we had these conversations and discussions. Well, the other thing we were doing as well is when people were around was freestyling, ciphering, and if we weren't playing cards or trying to play cards, which a lot of us in the main cafeteria, we couldn't, but we could in the senior lounge by the time I was a senior. So that was the perfect place to go do it. And a quick story about this. As I was starting to make my way, junior year, more people are finding out about me. And there was a guy and a couple of his friends who were there who were known as rappers that, without them really even knowing anything about me or knowing me, said that nigga can't rap. I'd crush his ass. So the word starts to get back to me and my friends. And I'm like, oh, word? Somebody talking shit about me and they've never even heard me rhyme. So I'm like, okay, cool. No doubt. So somehow, I don't even know how this worked out, but we happened to be in the cafeteria at the same exact time. Me thinking that they probably were in the cafeteria at that time and that wasn't their lunch, or we just never crossed paths during the cafeteria during that time because we ran in somewhat similar circles, but not the same circle. So just so happened that they're there, and it's like, yo, dude who's talking shit about you here in the lunch table, what's up? So I'm like, yo, we'll go over here and ask him what's good. If you want to put up a shut up. So he comes and said, yo, he said that you scared. You not trying to rhyme. So I'm like, all right, word. So I get up, I grab my backpack, I walk over there, I sit down, and my man was like, yo, so who the dude's supposed to be rhyming? I'm like, yo, it's me right here. So dude looks at me, and he gave me this dismissive look yeah, all right, this nigga. That type of look. So that sets your boy off. I'm like, all right, I'm about to roast this nigga. So he's like, yo, so what are we doing? I'm like, yo, so somebody said that you crushed me. You hadn't even heard me. How the fuck that could happen? How you gonna crush me and you don't even know what the fuck I sound like? And he was like, nah, I didn't really say no shit like that. I'm like, so where the fuck did that come from? He said, dog, I have no idea. He was like, yo, but if you hear shit, if you rhyme, let's spit. You know what I'm saying? Ain't no battle or nothing. Let's just sit there. Let's cipher. Let's freestyle. Cool. So we got up. His man starts off. He goes next, you know what I'm saying? After his man flows for maybe 2 minutes or so, he flows for maybe 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes or so. They were both cool, you know what I'm saying? They both had some flow. Then the cipher comes around to me, and I had a point to prove. So I decided I was going to go all out on these dudes to show them that I wasn't no bitch. Not only that, but I could rhyme, and I could probably rhyme better than them. And that was really my objective every time I stepped in the Cypher, was to show these niggas that I had skills, that I wasn't no slouch. So I goes and I flow, and I flow, and I flow, and I flow. And we were saying back then that I was flowing for like 10 minutes, but it probably was closer to like maybe 6 or 7. But I did flow longer than anybody else out there. By the time I was done, everybody in the Cypher was giving me my props. And that made me hold my head up high, because, yo, you want to be the nigga in the Cypher that everybody's talking about when they roll out. So then after that, my name sort of starts getting around. Then niggas want to come up and start battling me. Like, all right, man. That's what happens during the Cypher. When you make a name, people want to come after you. And that's hip hop, right? You know, when you make a name, folks are going to want to come after you. And it was funny now thinking back on it, because it's like, yo, like, really, we could have taken that time to really build and make some things. Like, we could have gotten together and collaborated on songs. But being in the Cyphers is how I linked up with my boy Ideal. We ended up linking up with each other. I found out he had recording equipment. He found out I made beats, and I also rhymed. And that started a long, long relationship of us making music and also creating things. So, you know, that's what the Cypher led to. So now, as we sort of get into the type of spitters that you had in the Cypher, now there are always different type of spitters in every Cypher. All type of different styles depending on who you listen to, who you influenced you, who you liked, and, you know, the styles that you sort of catered yourself towards. So I'm going to give you just an example of the 4 type of spitters that existed in the high school freestyle Cypher. So the first one is the gangster rap nigga. Okay, the gangster rap dude or girl always like cussed way too much. Everything was sex, money, and murder. Even at an age when you was like 14, 15, 16 years old, something that you probably didn't know a whole lot about, but whatever, that's what you listen to. They tend to listen to folks like Tupac, like Scarface, like Master P, Spice One, you know, you name it. MC8, like all these gangster rappers, they like, yo, listen to a lot of gangster rap and thought they were hard, but they always, in the Cypher, the motherfuckers that cuss way too much, always talking about sex, always talking about money, murder, weed, whatever, drinking, whatever. And I'm like, it's really funny thinking about it, because like, yo, we was kids, man. It just shows you like how influential music can be. The second type of person was always that super over lyrical with the mystical vibe, like always wanting to talk like that philosophical type shit, like the one that would, you know what I'm saying, always be wearing the kufi or the or something, like, you know what I'm saying, like the ones who would be listening to Wu-Tang or Gravediggers or Bush Babies, or the ones who would listen to Cannabis way too much, that would always get in there and be in the Cypher and would, you know, we be rhyming and would have some rhymes, but would sit there and be like, yo, what the fuck is you talking about? Like, it's you could always tell the Wu-Tang heads in the Cypher. Let me put it that way. You had those Wu-Tang heads in the Cypher, the ones that were into that shit, and you could tell who them niggas were, yo. Like, you could tell who the Wu-Tang fans are in a Cypher by the way that they rhyme. But that's what I'll say about that. And then you had the ones who, and these are the ones that are worst type of ones in the Cypher, is the niggas who couldn't rap, or the ones who can't stay on beat. And the niggas who can't rap in the Cypher and who couldn't stay on beat are the worst ones in the world, because it doesn't keep the Cypher going. Like, if you can't rap, like, you know something's wrong in a Cypher when a nigga who can't rap or who can't stay on beat, if niggas' head stop nodding in a Cypher, you in trouble. I repeat, if head stop nodding in the Cypher, you're in trouble, because that means niggas are not feeling what the fuck you're saying. Now, every once in a while, people will stop to catch what it is that you're saying, and then you'll get a, ooh, and a, you know, or get a quick head nod, like, yeah, that shit was nice. When head stop nodding in the Cypher, or when people start looking down or start looking away, you in trouble because your shit is whack. And you know when you're so bad, when the nigga who's either beatboxing or the nigga who's banging out the beat on the table is getting off beat because you are your shit, yeah, your shit might be terrible. And those niggas, you get talked about in a different type of way, not just like the nice ones that people know. You get talked about in a way that it's like niggas like, yo, this nigga whack, son. Like, yo, this nigga is some shit, dog. And those ones get talked about too. But then you get the ones, obviously, who have the balance with it. The ones who are kind of like all those styles, except for the ones who can't rap. You get the ones who are sort of nice with it, that rhyme, that can kind of throw some references in, some similes, metaphors, and are really nice with it. The ones that kind of have the balance. And the ones who sort of get their names talked about the most in Cypher, that people be like, yo, they one of the best. Those are the ones that do it, the ones who had the balance. And you have those Cypher. You get a Cypher, and you say you got like 5-6 heads in a Cypher, and you say you got 3 or 4 people who all have that balance. That's a nice Cypher to be in. You know what I mean? So it was cool to be able to see those different types in the Cypher and interact that way. So the high school freestyle Cypher, man, it really was something back then. Like when I talk about all the different aspects of high school, you know, it was not just the class, it was the friendships, you know, sitting down at the lunch table, it was playing cards and Cyphers, talking hip hop and music and girls. But the Cypher really was something that sort of got me into wanting to do music even more, because when you interact with other hip hop heads, people who spit more than likely are going to be listening to music. So that gave us even more opportunities to discuss hip hop and discuss the things that were out during that time. So you knew you were dealing with fans that sort of understood the music in a bit of a different context than just your run-of-the-mill person. And that's not to say that the rappers who listen to music were better than the folks who didn't rap, but you knew, though, that when they listened to the music, you could discuss it on a little bit of a different level than the kid who was in your chemistry class who, you know, just kind of listened to the radio. And so it's weird me being able to explain it. But yeah, man, the high school Cypher was definitely something that was cool. And I know that it developed even further, even after I left high school. But then as the internet developed, man, they sort of took that Cypher and moved it online. And then, you know, as you got into the 106 and Parks and people having those, like, you know, the Rap City, the basement, where people would come down and freestyle, and you would have the Freestyle Fridays on 106 and Park, where that got much more attention, and the whole spot about being able to freestyle and off the dome was cool. That you see on these different radio shows where these rappers now freestyle nowadays, and there's been a big debate these last couple of weeks and into 2021 about what a freestyle truly means. And that now we know that a lot of folks, when they freestyle, are actually writing them down, their rhyme that you wrote previously before you came to the show, and you're now spitting them. They haven't been heard before. But back then, it was a lot of that majority, man. The freestyle Cyphers in high school were off the top of the dome, because that's the only way you can make it. Now, people used to write stuff, and they would spit written shit in there too. But the majority of stuff we were doing was more than likely off the top, man. So shout out to the high school Cypher, man. That was really something that I remember, and something that everybody who was in high school up to a certain point remembers and knows that it was a part of your entertainment during that time as well. And that is going to wrap up yet another edition of The Vault. Please make sure you are checking us out on our host on Red Circle. You can also make sure that you're following us on vaultclassicpod.com. Visit us at vaultclassicpod.com. You can go there, listen to the episodes, leave a review, rate the episodes. You can also leave a voicemail with the blue microphone in the right-hand corner, the buy me a coffee in the left-hand corner with the coffee cup highlighted in yellow. Make sure you go there, drop us a donation if you support the show and want to keep us producing the content that you know and love and keeping the vault open for a long time. You can also get to us on social media by visiting IG at Vault Classic Pod, on Twitter at Vault Classic, and on Facebook and YouTube by going to the Vault Classic Music Reviews podcast. Like the Facebook page, subscribe to the YouTube channel, interact with us on social media. We do it here all for you. We appreciate the support, and if you have a friend, tell a friend, and make sure that that friend tells a friend. Always remember to keep your headphones on and your music loud, but not too loud. And as we close, we'd like to remind everyone to dream big, because dreams are the basis for creation. Always create, motivate, and elevate, because you were never destined or created to stay stationary in this life. And on that note, we say peace.
Thank you for listening and coming into The Vault. Please subscribe and visit us at vaultclassicpod.com. That's vaultclassicpod.com.
This week at Macy's, we're ready for a winter pick-me-up with an extra 20% off when you use your coupon or Macy's card. Or shop incredible specials like 30 to 40% off designer handbags and 65% off coats to finish the season in style for him and for her. And get 1,400 thread count sheets for just $39.99. Plus, Macy's Star Rewards members earn on every purchase except gift cards, services, and fees. See Macys.com/Star Rewards. Savings off sale and clearance prices, exclusions apply.